Somewhere around 100,000 years ago, two humans sat across from each other, and one of them said something that wasn't true. We don't know what it was. We don't know who said it. We don't even know if they knew they were lying. But at some point, for the first time in the history of our species, a human looked at another human and deliberately planted a false idea in their mind. And everything changed.
Today, we're going to figure out when that moment happened. Not the exact date, we'll never know that. But we can get surprisingly close. Because the lie didn't come out of nowhere. It required something, a very specific upgrade to the human brain. And once you understand what that upgrade was, you'll understand something strange about yourself. Here's what most people assume about lying. They assume it's a moral failure, a character flaw.
Something broken in a person. But that's not what the science says. The science says lying is one of the most cognitively demanding things a human brain can do. To lie successfully, your brain has to do three things simultaneously. It has to suppress the truth. It has to construct a believable alternative. And it has to monitor the other person's face in real time to see if they're buying it. That's not simple. That's not primitive. That is an extraordinarily sophisticated piece of mental machinery. And it took millions of years to build. Before you can lie to someone, you have to understand something fundamental. You have to understand that they have a mind. Not just a body, not just a face. A mind with its own beliefs, its own knowledge, its own version of reality. Psychologists call this theory of mind. And here's the thing. Most animals don't have it. A dog doesn't understand that you have beliefs that differ from its own. A crow doesn't know that you don't know where it hid the food. But a human does. And the moment you understand that another person has a mind you can influence, the possibility of lying is born. Now, here's where it gets interesting. We know exactly when children develop theory of mind, between the ages of 2.5 and 4. And we know exactly when children start lying, between the ages of 2.5 and 4. That is not a coincidence. So the question becomes, when did our ancestors develop theory of mind? When did the first human brain look at another human brain and think, that person doesn't know what I know, and I can use that? We'll get there. But first, we need to go back further, much further. In 2004, psychologists Richard Byrne and Nadia Korp published a study in the Proceedings of the Royal Society B. They looked at 18 primate species, and they measured two things: the size of the neocortex, the outer layer of the brain responsible for complex thinking, and the frequency of tactical deception. The result was striking. The bigger the neocortex, the more the species lied. Not group size, not diet, not environment. Neocortex size. Lemurs, small neocortex, almost no deception. Macaques, bigger neocortex, more deception. Chimpanzees, even bigger, significantly more. Humans, largest neocortex of all. Draw your own conclusions. Now, you might be thinking, chimps lie? Yes, and one of them did it in a way that should make you slightly uncomfortable. At Furuvik Zoo in Sweden, researchers observed a male chimpanzee named Santino. Every morning, before the zoo opened, Santino would collect stones. Then he would hide them, behind logs, under hay, out of sight. And when the visitors arrived, he would throw them. Think about what that requires. He wasn't reacting in the moment. He was planning for a future interaction. He was imagining a scenario that hadn't happened yet and preparing a deception for it. That's not instinct. That's strategy. Now, researchers debate whether Santino truly understood the minds of the visitors, or whether he was just learning that hidden rocks plus visitors equals successful attack. But either way, the behavior is there. The architecture of deception, planning, concealment, execution was already present in our evolutionary cousins. Here's what this means. Deception didn't appear suddenly in humans. It was already being built, slowly, incrementally, across millions of years of primate evolution. The arms race between deceivers and lie detectors was already running long before the first human walked upright. We didn't invent lying. We inherited it. And then we made it catastrophically more powerful. Because we got language. A 2025 meta-analysis from MIT synthesized 15 genetic studies and concluded that the cognitive capacity for human language was present at least 135,000 years ago. But language capacity and language use are different things. The archaeological record shows something interesting happening around 100,000 years ago. At Blombos Cave in South Africa, humans were engraving geometric patterns on ochre. They were making shell beads. They were creating ochre processing toolkits, multi-step chemical processes. This is the first clear evidence of symbolic thought, of minds communicating abstract ideas. And here's the thing about symbolic thought. Once you can represent something that isn't there, once you can point at a symbol and make someone think of something that doesn't exist in front of them, you can make someone believe something that isn't true. Language didn't just allow us to share information. It allowed us to share misinformation. But here's where it gets strange. At the same time humans were evolving the capacity to lie, they were also evolving the capacity to catch liars. Evolutionary psychologists Lida Cosmides and John Tooby identified what they call a cheater detection module in the human mind. A specialized cognitive system, not general intelligence, specifically designed to identify people who take benefits without paying costs. It develops in children by ages 3 to 4. It appears in every culture studied, including isolated hunter-gatherer populations. You didn't learn to distrust cheaters. You were born with the hardware to find them. Which means the evolutionary arms race between liars and lie detectors has been running for a very, very long time. So let's put this together. The capacity for deception was already present in our primate ancestors, millions of years ago. The brain structures required for intentional lying, the prefrontal cortex, the anterior cingulate, expanded dramatically in Homo sapiens. Language arrived at least 135,000 years ago. Symbolic behavior, the first evidence of minds communicating abstract ideas, appears around 100,000 years ago. And we know from child development that the moment theory of mind clicks into place, the moment a child understands that another person has a mind with different beliefs, lying follows almost immediately. The first intentional human lie almost certainly happened somewhere in that window, between 300,000 and 100,000 years ago. We can't be more precise than that. But we can say this with confidence. The first lie wasn't an accident. It wasn't a mistake. It was a cognitive achievement. And here's the part that should stay with you. Bella DiPaolo, a psychologist at UC Santa Barbara, ran a landmark study in 1996. She had people keep a diary of every lie they told. The average? 2 lies per day. But when she asked people how often they lied, most said almost never. We lie about lying. The first human who lied to another human will never know their name. We'll never know what they said. But whatever it was, it worked. And 100,000 years later, we're still doing it. Every single day. The first lie wasn't the beginning of something broken. It was the beginning of something human. The question is, what do we do with that?